eminent leader and military genius. He was a religious nut. He was a deserter, a turncoat. He was a man afraid of responsibility. He was not the eminent leader that we were told he was. Vartan, the commander-in-chief of the Armenian army, did not go to Abarat to fight. He went there to die. Read his Abarat speech. And because of this, the whole uprising and the battle were doomed from the start.
That's right. Okay, now, when Vartan came back on the Vasak's request back to Armenia, he went to meet him before he went to his home. So they are talking. Two guys are talking. Now, let me tell you this. From all my 18 books that I have read about Vartanants, and everywhere, it looked like and it gave the impression that Vartan and Vasak were very close friends, and they had great deal of respect to each other. And they sought advice from each other all the time. And I can tell that if there was no Vasak, there wouldn't have been a Vartan or vice versa. What happened when Vartan came back from the land of the Greeks, where he escaped to, again, Vasak put the question to him, why are you running away? Why don't you tell me what you got in mind? Let me help you. Vartan looks at him, okay, you want to help me? Go and get a letter from the king. Okay, what do you want in it? Tell me, what do you want? And he tells him, okay, I want first forgiveness from the king for deceiving him. That we accepted. Persian king, yes. There's no other king at that time. I know. Persian king. So, he says, I want pardon from the king for deceiving him. Tell him that we accepted paganism, but we really didn't. So, he says, okay, second, he says, freedom of worship of Christianity in Armenia. Any way we want to worship our Lord, our God. Okay. Third, he wanted to remove all the taxes from the churches. He says, okay. And remove all the taxes from the clergy. Clergy, okay. Why clergy? The question is this. They want to get freedom from taxes, the religious people, the clergy, because when the Sassounian kingdom fell, their parents, Vartan and his compatriots at that time, they were about 50, 60, 70 years old. Their parents, they went and took all the land that our Sassounian kingdom had and divided among themselves. We call them in English usurpers. History repeated itself during Vartan's time because when they were in Persia at the king's palace, king telling them that you have to change your religion, this and that, and finally they let them go back to Armenia, to their country, as if they accepted their paganism. At that time, many, many hundreds of Persians came to Armenia. Here's a new horizon. We can do business here. They built homes and businesses and all. But at the same time, lots of priests, mockers and mockmen. One head priest and many priests came with them to Armenia. And some Yepiskopos named Joseph of Argashad got the idea that he is going to be a hero, and he went ahead and destroyed all the Ardushans, the temples, Persian and killed some priests, and he killed the head priest as well. So all the Persians were afraid of their life. They fled the country back to Persia. They left everything they owned over there and left for freedom, for their life. Near Aranera, the Vartan and Josep Católicos and Revoltieres, oh, that Revoltieres, terrible person, and Amadunis and Kununis, Vartans Pesa, and all of them, they went and took, just like their parents did, Sassounian's kingdom's properties. They went and divided all the land that Persians left behind. And they made it their own. They got deeds on them. And they became usurpers, just like their uncles and parents were. Usurpers.
So this is how many years before the Battle of Vartanants?
We did about 6 months before.
6 months. Okay.
No, the confiscation of property took about a year and a half or so ago.
Okay.
But what happened, those Persians who lost the properties, they are going to the king and saying, Lord, why don't you make them pay our, give our properties back or pay the price?
Question.
And they are not paying it. Armenians won't pay it. Because who are they? Josep Católicos and Revoltieres was the biggest land grabber at that time. He had more land than anybody else. If you read Athons, Nicolaus Athons, he's telling how much land he grabbed. And it's a shame that religious people, as well as military and others, got involved in this.
Excuse me, sir. We have with us a historian, Dr. Keshishan.
No, I'm not a historian. I'm a political scientist.
Okay. What do you think
No,
about...
I thought these were like today. Tea Party members who don't want to pay the taxes.
Yeah.
And the same is happening in Armenia today. They have 17 communists dividing all the land, so nothing changes.
Okay, you're making a good comparison. But however, what happened is this. At that time, the king put taxes on those properties. Just like we inherited property from our parents, IRS wants a tax on it. So, they won't pay the tax. So Revoltieres came up with that unity problem, and they organized it. They are going to teach a lesson to the king.
Okay, so you're saying that what led up to the Battle of Vartanants, the Battle of Vartanants, which you say may or may not have taken place, it was a tax issue more than a religious
More
issue.
than nothing else.
Okay.
2 years ago.
Okay, and you're saying the Armenians provoked the Persians into fighting the Battle of Vartanants. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, I'll come to that in a minute.
Okay.
What happened is that 2 years ago I was in Armenia. I go over there quite often. And I said, I'm going to, once and for all, I'm going to get a straight answer from someone who knows about this era, 5th century, 450, 460, around that era. And I said, who is the head of this Madina Taran? And I find out, I went to see him. I said, do you know anything, or do you have anybody who is a historian over here? He says, I am. He says, do you know anything about the Vartanants in that area? He says, yeah, I do. I know quite a bit. I said, what was the reason that our battle took place? I marked the Salinzi. To his Sumbatsundaragam Neremis. Habarchunes are there. I said, no, you tell me. He says, Texas, 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 and Texas. Do you want me to tell you more? He said. I said, no, thank you. That's it. So, the entire Avarite confrontation demonstration, uprising was for Texas. It wasn't religious, it wasn't political, it wasn't for anything else. It wasn't Christos, it wasn't Hyrenians. Thank you, Arakela Randigaretsi. So,
Excuse me. Dr. Keshishian, what's your evaluation of Vartan, Vasak, and Baham?
Completely different from what he thinks. I
So-
think it's strictly speculation.
So what do you think?
In a sense, it's really irrelevant what we think, but the point is that
Well, that's why
after
we are here.
After Vartanants, or 50 years later, nobody named their children Basar.
there's no reason
So
for
there must be a reason for that.
Okay.
And if you can discredit Hofset, the Gartoligos, the commander of the army as a nut, and what have you, then there's nothing to talk about.
What about Baham? What do you think about
But Navasagi Tashnaki is considered the first treaty internationally. There was a professor, I don't remember his
not
name. He
international,
lists,
the local over there, by the barrels.
as an
Yes.
international treaty, major treaty.
Okay.
He figures there are 10 treaties in the world, and Navasagi was one of them. When we argued with him this about Armenians, he had no interest, no knowledge of it, but he thought this is the first treaty, serious treaty between nations. Another one was during the Giliga region, but that's the whole point. So all these do not come out of the air.
Well, what role did Baham play?
Baham was to continue the war, continue the fighting, and
So he played an important role.
yeah, the Persians wanted to have one religion, one faith, one belief throughout their whole empire, which is understandable. This is why the Soviet Union put out the church. We don't need no competing thing. In America, we do it by separation of church and state, whatever that means.
Yeah.
you know.
Diversity.
That's what it was, and if the Persians came and about within 6 months bought all the country, and then the Armenians took them over, and taxation was the main way of usurping and forcing a country into submission. So it's not the normal taxation we know today.
Any other questions?
I think that,
Go ahead.
I think it's undeniable that religion was an important aspect of what precipitated or brought about the conflict. I don't know that you want to completely set aside religion as a factor. Can it be a combination of both?
The king gave them freedom to worship the way they want. But, okay, the request that Vartan made to Vasa, 4 items, tax to the churches, tax on the clergy, freedom of worship, and then pardon for their deceiving the king. He got first 3, but he won't lift the taxes from the clergy because they took all those lands from the Persians and they became richer, but they will not pay the tax. So he will not forget that.
Okay. Do you know?
Upon reading that letter, Revontieris went berserk.
Yeah, but do we know if they taxed churches in general throughout the Persian Empire, not just Armenians, but it was taxation on churches throughout
It's
the
not the
Persian Empire?
church that he's taxing. He lifted the tax. The clergy who
The priest.
grabbed the land and the properties of the Persians.
The
in
individual
Armenia.
priest.
So you're saying they picked out only those Armenians who usurped the land for
Yeah.
taxation,
Yes.
but nobody else was taxed except the Armenians. Is that what
No, everybody was taxed, but those guys were taxed heavily and they were trying to get rid of it.
Okay.
I don't
The king
understand.
won't let it.
I don't understand one thing, that land they grabbed, that was in Armenia or
In Armenia. As I said,
But the
when the
land belonged to Persians.
no, excuse me, let me
They
explain.
grabbed it from us, right? That way it's...
No. When they came from the king's palace, first time when he declared that you have to change your religion and this and that, when they came to Armenia, at that time, lots of Persians came to Armenia with the priests and all, and as I explained a while ago, they bought land, they built homes, they built businesses and all, and they were living in there until the skirmishes between Joseph Episcopos of Argashat happened when he destroyed the temples, Adushans, and killed priests and the head priest. Then they fled Armenia back to Persia for their lives, leaving all the property in the back. Those are the properties that they grabbed and they divided among themselves,
The clergy.
and they did not pay taxes on it. So the king was saying, either return the properties or pay the price to my citizens, or I'm going to tax you. So he taxed them heavily on the properties. But Remontieret, who had the biggest share of the land, he won't pay taxes. And he started preaching in the churches that we should fight.
Now,
Go ahead.
much of what you've written here really is an effort to prop up Vasak and to make him, put him in a better light. Is that your main goal here, is to try to...
That's what I said in the beginning.
And so you don't need to tear down Vartan like you said at the beginning. You don't need to tear down Vartan.
No, I'm not tearing
Vasak,
Vartan.
right?
I'm not saying anything about Vartan. But there is a note from Juan Sassounian, a historian around 1885 to 1915, around there. He writes that when Vartan fell in our eye, still he had the deeds of the Persian properties on his name. Now this is a very, very important issue among historians. They read this, they can't believe it, but they read more and more, find out that actually those guys grabbed those lands and they made their own. They put the deeds of their name in their, deeds on their name, and they did not pay tax.
But Vartan was among many Armenians who did that. It wasn't just Vartan who did that.
No. As I said,
Vartan and a few others. Vartan and a few others.
The clergy individual. Sam mentioned freedom of religion. We are still talking today about freedom of religion. Aren't we, Dr. Kishish?
Yes.
So what role?
Freedom of conscience.
Freedom of religion. The Catholic Church and the president, the administration today are fighting about freedom of religion.
Well, one thing is that the Catholic Church,
there was no Catholic at that time. Anyway,
No. We know there was no Catholic.
there was.
no, there wasn't.
What do you mean there was? The Armenian Church
451?
organized in 301, which was about 16, 17 years before the Catholic Church. Fact.
In Armenia, there was no Catholics at that time.
Okay, you were going to say about freedom of religion?
The Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, from it, the Anglican Church, all these recognize Avarai and Vartanants as a peace state because this was a battle for freedom of conscience.
Freedom of religion.
They must have done some research as well. They're not only, you can
No,
pick-
Sam mentioned
yeah,
that.
you can pick your research source and go.
Sam mentioned also freedom of
Oh, yes.
religion. Yes? What do you think? Any other historians?
Soon after the ministers returned from Dizbon and Vartan was brought back from his desertion by Vasak, all ministers, generals, clergy, and heads of wealthy and influential families joined to form unity against the Persian king. All those who took an oath and signed the unity declaration. The only person who did not was Vasak Suni. While the standoff continued for months, the ministers came up with an idea. One day, while Vasak was traveling with 4 of his lancers, the generals and a few of the ministers ambushed him, gave him an ultimatum. Either he signed the oath or they would kill him and his lancers. After a long argument, Vasak joined the unity by signing the oath in front of all ministers, generals, and heads of wealthy families. It should be emphasized here that Vasak was forced to sign the oath. He did so under duress, against his will. However, as soon as he signed the document, a new Vasak emerged to life. Right there and then, he started marking plans as to how to fight the king. Every thought, plan, every preparation was written down, and he told everyone involved how to implement them. The other signatories once again forced him to put his